Well, everybody, it's time to get real. We're going to get real about Sarah J. Maas today in this sit-down video. Welcome back to Ravenclaw Reads. I'm Courtney. I do book videos, reviews, weekly reading vlogs, and whatever comes to my mind. So today, I decided I would do sort of a deep dive into my Sarah J. Maas experience. Not a disclaimer, but like, this is my channel. This is how I feel about her writing and her most popular books. And so all views are my own. So let's just kind of start from the beginning. So myself as a reader, I enjoy romance, cozy mysteries, getting on thriller board, and fantasy. I didn't realize I liked fantasy until I started my reading journey in 2020, and then really in the ACOTAR series. The most fantasy that I had read was like Percy Jackson and Harry Potter as an adult reader. So reading those books, I kind of felt like I knew quite a bit about fantasy, and I was wrong. In 2020, I attempted to read Chain of Gold and was completely lost, and realized that I was not a high fantasy reader yet. And I kind of dabbled in still some middle grade fantasy, but when ACOTAR came out last year, it just got really big. I fell into the trap and I said, I have to just read this. And so that is what I did. I think I have A Court of Mist and Fury out of order. What is it? Yeah, this is the second book. Okay, so I went into a deep dive of reading all of these books and was obsessed, right? So I started with A Court of Thorns and Roses. Like many of us, we picked up the book because it was touted as a romance fantasy, and we were all in it for the romance. In the first book, romance does not really happen. It's not until like the late second, third book that we start seeing some more romantic elements, but I really, really loved this series. I had recommended it to many people. I had shared it with my sister, who she didn't enjoy it, but I really was like gung-ho for this series. I really, really liked it. And I liked Sarah J. Maas's writing style, right? I liked the way that she was making this sort of world building accessible. And there were parts in the first one that were very confusing, and everybody that I saw read this series said the first book is a lot of world building. It can be confusing. You just need to keep pushing through, and so that's what I did. Did I know what was happening the whole time? Absolutely not. But I kept going, and it got better and better and better, and I loved this series. The first three, right? So then we get to sort of the novella and the final book. The novella was like a great break because these books are all like 600-700 pages long, and the novella is like 200 and something. And it was like, yeah, I can do this. And it was just mid. Then I got to this book, and I was so done. Throughout the series, I never enjoyed Nesta. I didn't find her charming, endearing. I didn't see a silver lining at all in her personality. I thought she was horrible. And for this book to mostly be about that, and we completely lose Farah's story, I did not enjoy it, to be honest. And I can't even really tell you what this book is about anymore because I read it with such disdain that I blocked it out of my memory. But it was finished, and I was like, okay, the series is done, and I like Sarah J. Maas. So I was like, what else could I read from her collection? So I decided to pick up Crescent City and Throne of Glass, right? These are both two more of her books that were just really being hyped up on TikTok and on Goodreads and everything. And so I started with Throne of Glass, and I borrowed it from my public library, and I was so lost. I was kind of waiting and thinking Throne of Glass was going to be similar to ACOTAR, and then it was going to build in the same sort of way. But Throne of Glass made me feel like I was in the middle of a book that I had not read, and I didn't study for the test. So it didn't feel enjoyable to me because things were happening. I had no idea who these characters were. I wasn't bought into their storyline yet. Like, very, very confusing. So I paused, and then I picked up Crescent City because other people were reading this. And I got to page 57 or 56. I'm on chapter 5. I am going to come back to this. This one is different because it is kind of modernized, and I am very, very early on to it. And so, like, I have no idea where this is going, but we still have sort of that fae world and some of that hunting and fighting stuff that she does. And so I'm coming back to this one. So after putting this down for a while and picking up Crescent City, I kept seeing more about this series, and I was like, I owe it to myself to read this series. Like, I have to do it. So this is what I found out. I found that many people were starting with the prequel novel, The Assassin's Blade. Now, The Assassin's Blade can go in different parts in the series, and this is one of those things you have to decide for yourself. I'll give you my recommendation. So The Assassin's Blade is supposed to be the prequel. It's the backstory of Selena, and you can either read it before Throne of Glass, or you can read it, I think, after Heir of Fire. I chose to read it before because I had no idea what was happening in this one. Like, literally so lost. And this was my first book that I fully annotated. So you can see here, I have all of these markings and underlined things because I needed to know who these characters were, who was I following, what's the story, what's the plot. And that really helped me and psyched me up for Throne of Glass. So this book was so good. I read it, it took a little bit longer because of tabbing and underlining, but I thought it was so good. It really cleared things up for me. So then I moved to Throne of Glass, and I started annotating, and it was slowing me down. So I was like, you know what? I don't need to annotate anymore. I kind of got who's who. And I thought it was better because of this book, okay? So now I'm deep in the Throne of Glass series. I'm like, yep, I love a good series. I love knowing what my next book's going to be for, you know, the next 8 books or whatever. That's exciting to me. So I moved on. So then I got to Crown of Midnight and read this one. This one took a little bit longer for me to read, and honestly, I didn't love it. It was very much a filler book, and I gave the series a shot, and I said, you know what, it's fine. I don't really love this one, but let's go on to Heir of Fire. I'll take a little bit of break and read Heir of Fire. And then, being highly influenced, I see more and more people picking up this series, finishing it, loving it. So I picked up Heir of Fire, and holy moly, I rated this 2.5 stars. Like, coming from 5-star ACOTAR to like 3.5 stars in the other Throne of Glass books, this was a 2.5. It literally took me so long to finish because it was boring. It was just boring. And I want to be okay saying that because everybody's hyped up on this series, and it was not good. In this book, I want to say this is the book that has like everybody doing 6 different things, right? So you have like your main characters all living their separate lives. So you have 3 different perspectives. And the one thing about this book that's really frustrating, which it's written before ACOTAR, but in this book, you just have your chapters and you kind of got to dig into the reading to figure out like whose perspective am I in? Who are we talking about? What characters? And in this book, it felt like each character in their world had like 6 or 7 more people involved that I had to learn and figure out, and it was like I was done. So I put this down a little bit, and I was like, I don't know that I'm gonna finish the series, and I was like, nope, I have to do it. I have to do it. So what did I do? I picked up Queen of Shadows, and I was devastated at the fact that this book was not good. To me, okay? You might like it, but to me, it was not good. It took me 12 days to get 400 pages. And for me, if I like a book, I could knock out a 500-page book in a day, on a weekend day, right? If I really love the book and the book is speeding through and it's just like great writing, 12 days to get to 400 pages. There are 630 plus pages in this book, and I talked about this in my vlog that's coming out on Sunday, but unpopular, I marked this as a read book at 400 pages, and I read the summary of what happened at the end because I could not take it. It is not what I thought it would be. It's not good, and I gave myself permission to DNF this series because I don't like it. I just don't like it. Now, in these high fantasy series, I'm finding a pattern that there are a couple filler books. They get kind of lofty, but unlike ACOTAR, this series never comes around. And I'm waiting for like the watershed moment of like everything to make sense and come together. And if you're reading this series or have read it, maybe put down in the comments, like, what book is that? Did I miss the watershed moment? Like, am I completely out of the realm? If I'm missing the watershed moment, what book? Because after this, I have Empire of Storms, Tower of Dawn, and Kingdom of Ash. So which book hits? I'm confused. So it was kind of difficult to decide I was going to DNF the series because I really wanted to be committed to the series. Like I said, I love having a series to go to. I love being a part of this sort of fandom within Sarah J. Maas's readers, but I just don't like it. I don't understand really what's going on. I'm not invested in the characters, and none of it makes me like want to not put the book down. For ACOTAR, I literally couldn't put the books down. I was reading them so ferociously that it didn't take me long to finish the entire series. And I loved every minute of it. Well, except the last book, right? But in this series, I'm like trudging through mud trying to read this book. So I'm DNFing the series. Unless somebody tells me otherwise in the comments. For now, it's DNF'd. Will I come back? I don't know. I need to know, like, what book do things tie together and what book does it like really start to make sense? And again, if I miss that, then I'm good leaving the series where it is because I didn't feel any of that. So I think in our book talk and Bookstagram culture, we all have these series and books that we're excited to dig into, and we all are ready to like share these and get excited about them. And sometimes they just don't hit for all of us, and Throne of Glass is one of those. I think Sarah J. Maas as an author is kind of niche, and I think there's a lot of us who are not typically high fantasy readers that are engaging in this because of the popularity that she's bringing about right now. And while I do love ACOTAR and I stand by that, I can't say the same for Throne of Glass. Crescent City didn't knock me off my toes either. So I will go back to Crescent City at some point. I'm not racing. I think there's other fantasy books out there, different writing styles that I want to explore. And so while she didn't completely turn me off of high fantasy, I think we're overhyping some of these books and some of these series because they're not maybe necessarily made for just the general reader who's not always in the high fantasy world. And so ACOTAR's is accessible in my opinion, and for some it still may not feel that way and people won't like to read it, but I enjoyed it. So far my journey has been up and down with Sarah J. Maas. I think she has a unique writing style. I think ACOTAR is worth trying if you're interested in that political world building with a slight hint of romance. But honestly, if you never pick up a Sarah J. Maas book, you are not missing out. You read what you want to read, DNF what you want to DNF, and create the reading space that feels great for you. That would be my best advice. So that is my Sarah J. Maas journey / rant. I hope you found this somewhat interesting, and comment down below your feelings about some of these Sarah J. Maas books. As I said, these are totally my own opinion about her different writing series that I've explored. Some people may be really, really into them and enjoy every part of each of her series. That's just not me at this point. I am very curious though that if you read Throne of Glass, which book hits? Tell me now. Comment down below. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to share my budding YouTube channel in this very saturated booktube market. So thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.